All right, Eric.
Very nice.
The time has arrived for your official recap of what in the hell happened when last we got together. So, from the perspective of Mr. Joe Miller, what was going on?
Well, we had a break from our investigations while we arranged to have Weathers buried in the Lesser Edale. Feel a little bit strange leaving him in England, but a lot of that happened during the war, so I guess it's not so unusual. Mahoney from the Scoop and the Constable from Lesser Edale attended. Left behind, Weathers had a strange ceremonial dagger in his message bag, maybe made out of ivory, and one of his weird books of ritual magic. In his luggage in our hotel, he had a black silk robe, maybe like that a judge would have, but it had symbols drawn around the neck, sleeves, and hem, including the crooked star that we have come to associate with these so-called old ones, drawn on it in what appeared to be white chalk. We didn't stay long in Lesser Edale after the funeral, went back to London and to the Scoop. Spoke to Mahoney about the last case that Jackson Elias may have been investigating, the so-called Egyptian murders, and learned that another one had occurred just the day before. Scotland Yard had tried for a long time to claim that the murders were not related, but Mahoney said that they finally acknowledged that they seemed to be. According to rumors on the street, these murders are maybe being committed by some Egyptian cult, the Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh. There have been a total of, I think it was 18 murders at the time?
That's right, yep. And there is a total of 19 actually.
19 with the
yep. And 17 of the victims were actually Egyptian nationals, which is where the term Egyptian murders comes from.
Correct. So we visited Scotland Yard on the morning of March 5th, 1925, and met with Inspector James Barrington, who was in charge of the case. Initially, he did not seem to like us very much, but we got him to warm up to us a little bit, and were able to get a little bit of information from him about his investigation. The primary connection between the victims is the means of their deaths. All of them were murdered by being stabbed through the heart deliberately, while either being restrained or unaware. There was evidence that some may have been unconscious at the time, and they were drained of blood. They were disposed of in various means, being dumped in the river, in an alley, but they were always killed the same way. The yard had some potential suspects, but all of those leads have dried up, as all of those suspects had alibis. As you mentioned, 17 of the 19 were Egyptian nationals. One of them spoke the word Hotep, an Egyptian word meaning rest or peace. Many of the victims were frequenters of the Blue Pyramid Club in Soho, which seems to be a popular place for Egyptian nationals to visit.
And if you recall, Barrington also had interviewed a number of people sort of connected somehow or another to Egypt, and called out that there was a particular spice dealer by the name of Zara Safik that interested him. Apparently, she had worked with the Penhew Foundation in the past, a place that you had visited in previous episodes.
And she had told Barrington that the cult of the Black Pharaoh once existed, but she claimed that it does not any longer. Barrington suspected that there was something more to her story, but couldn't say what, if any, specific suspicions he had.
Yeah, there was just something about her that gave Barrington the impression that she was not telling him everything.
Yes.
He even went as far as tailing her for a few days, which confirmed she frequently went to the Blue Pyramid Club, but that's pretty much all he got out of that.
So we decided that our next point of call should be the Blue Pyramid Club. There wasn't really anything to see during the day, as the place was closed. While we were poking around outside, Walt thought he saw someone watching us from across the street. So we made our way into the apartment building and unlocked the door and
Surreptitiously unlocked the door and headed
Yes.
in. Yeah. What'd you find when you went in there? What was?
nothing. It was empty. Speaking to someone who heard us knocking before we surreptitiously opened the door, we found that its occupant had died a month prior, and that the place that all of her belongings had been removed.
But you heard some voices in there.
Walt heard some voices in there. I did not. So we opened the door to try to catch them unawares, and we found no one.
No sign of anyone having been there for some time.
Correct. The dust
Yeah.
was settled, there were no footprints, nothing that we could find that indicated anyone had been there.
Is this an indication that Walt's starting to break up, do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
So we went to the Penhue Foundation instead, tried to find out if they could tell us more about Carlisle, as we had received notice that our request to the Carlisle family attorney to have them release any information they had about the expedition had been answered. But Mr. Gavigan, who we needed to speak to, was busy. Walt struck up a conversation with the receptionist there, who seemed to particularly like him, and managed to get a little bit of information from her about the Blue Pyramid Club and Zara Safiq, their former employee. Not only was she a frequenter of the club, but she tended to recommend it. She left the Penhue Foundation to open her own enterprise, Empire Spices, in Soho, not too far from the club. So we figured we would return to Soho and find her spice shop and maybe chat with her a little bit. And when we were there, three gentlemen made their way towards us in a rather aggressive fashion. So we retreated down an alley.
So they tried to rough you up, that's what you're saying.
We got the impression they were going to. So we retreated down the alley and lay in wait for them, and they did try exactly that to
How did that work out for them?
It worked out poorly for them. We ended up roughing them up in return, and one had the misfortune to be hit in the head rather hard with a bat by Walt, and he was laid out, and at the moment I figured he was probably dead, but turns out he was still alive, so they carted him off to the hospital. What happened to him, I have no idea. One of the men was had his wrist probably dislocated, and he ran off. There was one that hit me rather hard with brass knuckles before Walt kneecapped him with the bat from behind. And on questioning, he admitted to being hired to teach us a lesson for poking our noses in where they don't belong.
Who hired him, do you think?
We don't know, but we found the bar that they frequent, and the barkeep told us that they were hired by a businessman with gray hair and a scarf. It was the only information he could give us.
And
Moriarty.
And, so we returned to our task to seek out Empire Spices. Found Zara. She gave us a salve that helped with the sucker punch that I had received from the brass knuckles in the jaw.
Took the pain pretty well away,
Took the
right?
pain pretty much away right away. Yes.
Yeah.
But it didn't smell all that pleasant. We learned that only members are permitted in the Blue Pyramid Club. And for £5 each and the recommendation of a member, we could become members for 1 year. And as a member, Zara agreed to sponsor us and get our names on the list for that evening at Walt's convincing.
Walt's just a charmer.
Walt has been charming a
it's
lot
that
of
rugged,
ladies this time.
Yes, yeah. It's that rugged, handsome, murderous.
He manages to hold that in when he's talking to them.
Yeah, so you after you spoke with Zara, where'd you go after that?
We went back to our hotel.
Figuring you're
because
going to
we
come back
needed
to
get
the
ready,
Blue
you know.
Pyramid at night or something.
Yes, the Blue Pyramid is a little bit more upscale, so you know our regular everyday street clothes probably not sufficient. But we found the door slightly ajar, and the room had been tossed as if somebody had searched through it. We found that Weather's books and his ceremonial dagger were gone, along with any spare weapons and ammunition that we left. Interestingly, Walt's adopted supernatural paintings were left where they were. So they didn't seem to have any interest in those, or they took a look at them and decided they were a little too freaky for their tastes. And that's where we left off. Oh, we did bring the hotel manager up, and
Yes.
I believe he had involved the authorities.
He had, in fact, involved the authorities. So, here we are. Still in the hotel room. The constable on duty for the neighborhood has taken an official report and an account of the things that you say are missing. He seemed somewhat surprised when you mentioned that you had a veritable armory of...
We didn't mention the armory.
Oh, you don't mention the guns?
No.
Okay,
We left
you
the guns
leave
out.
the guns out.
Right.
This is good. So he does take an account of the things that you mentioned that are missing, including these rare and collectible books.
Yeah.
And with a very sincere, Scotland Yard will get to the bottom of this, I assure you. You can be reached here for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. He stiffens and straightens his jacket, and then he kind of pivots and walks out. Typical formal, almost soldier-esque kind of fashion. The hotel concierge is also very apologetic, mentioning that this sort of thing just never happens here. He turns and leaves the two of you to kind of deal with the aftermath, straightening up your belongings and whatnot, but assures you that he is at your service should you need anything at all.
We'll make it clear that any inquiries into our rooms should be ignored unless it's us.
Well, of course, if there are any questions, my instructions will be to get as much detail about those asking as possible. We'll want to furnish that information to the yard.
And we're going to stop telling everyone we meet where we're staying.
Hi, potential criminal. Here's our street address.
And start gathering up our leftover stuff and go to another room.
Okay. You do get relocated. In fact, you are upgraded to a corner suite in exchange for your troubles.
Nice.
This room is beautiful. It has 2 bedrooms and a nice sized living area with these wonderful, kind of deep, rich colors and polished wood floors with rugs here and there. It's definitely an upgrade from where you were. What do you do once you get settled? So all of your things there, making sure that, they're secure and hide the things that you don't want to be found.
Clean up.
We need to clean up and get to the Blue Pyramid.
Okay. So you take the time to wash up and slick back your hair with a generous amount of pomade. Dress in the cleanest suits you have, noting that you haven't really stopped by a cleaner. So you just kind of have to hold them up and next to each other and see which ones look the best.
The least rumpled
Yes, exactly.
and the least smelly.
Yes. But you do. You get cleaned up and, you look pretty dashing for a bunch of tired, weary, half-insane Americans.
Yeah.
Walt, as you're standing in front of the mirror shaving your neck, watching in the mirror closely as you do. Straight razors are dangerous, Suddenly, the razor slips into the skin. You see the blood coming down, the slight sting, and you hit it with water, and you feel something there where your finger is. It's like a very stout whisker, maybe, or something. I'm not sure.
Check it out and get really up in the mirror.
You lean in closer into the mirror. It's black. It's like a filament or something. You kind of pull at it a bit, and it comes out. It gets wider. It's as if there's something larger in there, and as you pull, the area around your neck sort of swells outward.
Well, get it out.
You just give it a tug. Okay. Give me a sanity roll.
Oh, I have a lot to work with. 50 out of 34.
So you pull, and as you do, this grayish green maggot shaped thing just kind of comes out. At its widest, it's about 2 fingers wide, and you can feel it coming from down in your throat, and there's just sort of sound as you pull it, and the wound behind it puckers and seems to undulate a bit. It drops into the sink with a splat. You step back and everything gets really hazy. Your heart starts to beat. Your hands get really clammy. What do?
Joe?
Joe! You call out. You hear from the bathroom Walt's voice in a panic, echoing against the tile of the bathroom. What do?
I rush in.
You rush in. You were just about to get your tie tied straight, and it's kind of hanging, you know, all a mess. And you open up the door, and he's standing there having a clear meltdown of some kind.
What's in the sink?
You look in the sink.
I say that.
You say, what's in the sink? Yeah, what do?
In the sink.
There's shaving scum. There's quite a lot of it. You know, he had some scruff going on, and there's, you know, the extra foam. Nothing. The water's still running.
Like what? You need to clean it.
Steam coming up from the hot water.
I just thought I saw something.
You look back in the mirror, and your neck is fine, and you've got a bit of shaving cream running down your neck, and there's a little cut there, little one.
I think I'm losing it a bit here. Where's the whiskey?
Over there on the table.
Go get the whiskey.
You walk over, and he walks past
Pull
you.
it together?
Yeah.
He walks past you, sort of half shaven, over to the side table and pours himself a generous glass of whiskey, knocks it back. The burn down your throat really kind of does help to focus you, and your heart, though it is still kind of racing, your heart calms a bit. It's just not right here, you think.
Yeah.
After a time, you sit and sort of collect your thoughts. Joe, you finish getting dressed, and then Walt, you as well. Joe, while you're kind of waiting on him to do that, you get the opportunity to check out the beautiful view of downtown London that you've got from the corner suite. And then you are ready to go. Something's still not quite right with Walt. It's obvious that experience rattled him. He's quieter than usual and somewhat short when he answers questions and such. Where do you head? To the Blue Pyramid?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So,
And it suits the way they are these days. We can still bring our weapons, probably.
yes, for sure. Well, which weapons?
know.
The pistols?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You can conceal pistols without.
We don't have our shotguns anymore,
Yeah,
so
just
we
like-
can't bring those.
You get into the cab. Give the address now. You know it's actually on Meard Street. The Blue Pyramid Club on Meard Street, you say. And the cabbie, right on. Out for an evening on the town, are you? He says.
Yes, sir.
Well, I hear that place has got beautiful women, belly dancers, you know.
No, I did not.
Sounds better and better.
Yeah. I've never been in, but dropped quite a few people off over there over the years. And heads across town, you know, a reasonably short drive from the hotel, although the sort of narrow London streets and the mixture of cars and horse, carriages and things like that is a little extreme, a little jolting. You pull up in front and pay your cabbie, stepping out with a splash into some horse urine there in the on the side of the street. The smell of that with cigar smoke is strong. There are quite a few people standing out here, and you'll remember that the Blue Pyramid is above that grocer's stand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the grocer is closed at this point, so all these sort of wooden display things have been emptied, and they're just kind of standing there, and the door's closed, and the shutter's drawn. What do? You are there with this sort of crowd. There's probably right about 8 to 10 people kind of milling about in front of the door which leads to the stairway up.
Is there like a guard, or does it just look like it's not open for business?
You look around, you kind of survey what's going on. There are a couple of folks talking, it's a few Egyptian people, they're speaking a language you don't understand by any means. But yeah, there's actually a doorman who is standing there at the base of the stairs at this point. Whereas before, you'll remember that you could get up and then get all the way up to the sort of double door. Maybe it's crowded tonight or something.
Is this a proper queue? Wouldn't want to jump ahead and end on here.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like the folks there are maybe waiting for others in their party, for the most part.
Check in with the doorman.
Okay. You walk up. The doorman is a brutish, dark-skinned man of some Middle Eastern descent, you would think. He wears a fez, but on some people a fez is a laughable hat. On this guy, a fez is like respectable because if you laugh at it, he will probably destroy you. He's got a really vicious unibrow as he glares outward. You come walking up and the look on his face softens suddenly. "Welcome to the Blue Pyramid," he says.
Thank you.
You realize that maybe he has an intense case of resting asshole face. "Do you members?" he says.
Recent invites, Walter Adler and Joe Miller.
He reaches, he's got a list at his side, which he starts to rifle through. Who issued your invitation? He says.
Safik of Empire Spices.
You make a psychology roll when you utter that name.
No, 72 out of a lot less than that.
You're in the middle of lighting a cigarette. You don't really catch the look on his face, and you're kind of more focused on the piece of paper in his hand, just kind of looking to see if your name is there. He kind of widens his eyes as I see, and he goes to the back where her name is, and Shirley, written in the margin, in very squiggly scrawl, are your names, Miller and Adler. "Welcome, welcome, all guests of Zara are always are always welcome. Please come in, he says.
Thank you.
Take your coats." You give him your coats. You're packing heat.
Well, this is like the
Well,
coat,
it'd be
the
like
vest, and
sitting
the
there like
shirt.
a trench coat, right?
Oh, no, okay, so he means the whole deal, but yes, so he takes your actual overcoats and he declines the jacket. So
Right.
Good, got it. So he does, he takes your coats. You try as best you can, and I'm gonna want a stealth roll to kind of not rattle around with you, because you've got the leather holster, it's gonna squeak a bit, take the coat off.
I rolled a 2.
A 2.
50 out of 45.
So you are kind of taking your coat off. You notice that this guy, the doorman, kind of glances at his area where the holster might be. He doesn't say anything at all. He just continues to take it off. But he does seem to make a mental note. You, not so. You're just quick, and you sort of distract him by talking to him a little bit. He takes your coats and gives you back a number. "Please, upstairs. Drinks are on the house tonight.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
During the happy hour, yeah? Yeah.
I'll be happy.
Yeah. You go up the stairs, or you go up the rickety old lift that there was there at the end of the hallway?
Stairs.
Okay. So you walk up the stairs. Again, they're sort of tiled and kind of echoey as you go upstairs. Leading up to a door which was before had been closed. If you'll remember, there was sort of like a spy hatch in it where one could look out and ask for a password or some cliche thing like that. But it's actually open at this point. And you can smell the strong odor of pipe and cigar tobacco and traditional cigarettes wafting out, as well as the kind of welcoming smell of booze. The music on the inside, on the other hand, is this very Egyptian sort of jazz, sort of real upbeat stuff as you walk in. So the first thing you see ahead of you is a long hallway, and it's carpeted with this really rich Egyptian rug. There's some paintings and such on the right and left on these sort of wallpapered walls. It's basically a hallway which seems to lead, kind of, actually I can show you guys. It's fair enough, where is it? It's my favorite song by this band too. Oh, that's what, okay. That's why. The little engine that could.
So say you're teasing us there.
I know, I
It
can't.
comes and it goes.
What's going on here? There we go.
There it is.
Don't know what you can see of that. Technology! Dude,
We can see 1
hit
through
that
6
camera.
and 4.
Hit the red button on the camera. Where's the zoomy zone?
Doesn't look like it's happening.
There it is. Doing this upside down is a real fun thing.
Oh, there, yeah, it's up at the top.
I should do like a.
Turn right to go left.
Yes. So no super secrets here. So you basically enter in that hallway. You walk past the table there, where there is a guest registry and a small kind of domed green light. You walk the length of the hallway. So in the room sort of to the north, section 2. There's a very quiet room with a nice crackling fire, a lot of leather sort of seats around these tables, real fine purple tablecloths, and single candles on each table. And there are quite a collection of people in here just having coffee and conversation. You hear glasses clinking and that sort of thing. Directly opposite that.
Does it seem to be like a private party room or more like a place where people can go to sit to get away from the club?
Yes, it's the latter. Yeah, you kind of walk past and casually looking in there, you can see most of these folks, they seem like they're more relaxing, and there's a lot of action going on in the other. And then there's a Blink 182 song that comes out. Where the hell did that come from? That's funny.
There's some very modern music coming from the club.
Yeah.
Ultra modern.
So you, we'll just go back to the crazy ambient stuff that somebody somehow can sit and make 8 hours of ambient music. As you step in, you kind of glance into the room where 6 is. It's basically a drawing room. There's some really nice sort of billowy leather couches, these really rich Persian rugs. And there are mirrors on the walls here as well that make the room look much bigger. You actually, looking in, you can sort of see yourself looking back at you. You look pretty good. There's a fireplace in here as well. And quite a number of people sitting and laughing, and drinking, having casual conversation. A couple of folks look up, but no one, it's not like the entire sort of scene stops. So yeah, exactly.
Body snackers.
You do notice a lot of Egyptian folks, this sort of more bronzy skin tone.
Fits with what we've been told.
Yeah, for sure. But there are also a few kind of white European sorts here as well. So you don't stand out that much until you say something out loud.
And Miss Weather's commentary on these kinds of situations.
You do. Straight ahead is the ballroom, and on the stage is a pair of absolutely gorgeous dancers. Their bodies adorned with these sort of jewels that jingle when they move. Their hips, the telltale percussive garments of a belly dancer. And the music is appropriate for that sort of thing, which I'm going to put back on the regular jazz now, I think. What do you do? Where do you go?
Is the door to the area 6 open where we can similarly?
Yeah, they're literally right across from one another, and that was the room that I described as being the sitting area with all the leather furniture.
Okay.
Directly across. So what do? You stand there gawking in the doorway, and you?
No, just kind of glance, look
Okay.
around.
Yeah.
Interested first timer kind of
Okay.
moment.
You do, and as you're moving through, you kind of looking around. You notice a couple of folks look up. You know, it's not as like I said, it's not as if the record skips and everyone's like, oh my God, you know, who are these people? But there are a couple guys that you kind of notice checking you out as much as you're checking other things out. The one in particular has got a very thick, sort of dense black mustache and smoking a huge fat stogie. He's kind of overweight, wearing a gray suit, full vest, three-piece suit sort of thing, with a bow tie. He doesn't wear a hat, and his hair is really just kind of matted down to his head, like that sort of grease part thing that, and curls out a little bit on the sides. He looks almost like one of the Three Stooges.
Well, I wouldn't imagine that inside the club too many people are wearing hats.
Correct. This is correct.
And not that it's much to go on, but we'll keep an eye out for a businessman-looking guy with gray hair and a scarf.
You see lots of businessmen, and you can rule out the hair,
Well,
of course.
everybody wears a suit, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah. So it's that scene where think of that as the camera kind of pans along these different people and blowing out smoke and cocking back a drink as they laugh, and each, sure, he's got some salt and pepper gray hair, but he's Egyptian of descent, very dark in color, and their gray hair comes much later than your typical sort of European lot. What do? You are standing right now in the hallway.
I'll keep moving.
Make our way into the main area.
Okay. You make your way ahead, and as you do, there's actually a guy kind of walking out, sort of staggering out, like he's headed down the hallway. Pardon me, bud. There's gorgeous women in there. I think I found my next wife, he says. He pats you on the shoulder and
Good
burps.
for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. He makes his way on. You step in, there's a bar to the left. The bar is the busiest area of the room. There's a bartender there wearing a tuxedo, no tuxedo jacket, just a sort of tucked shirt and vest, bow tie and such. Busily slinging drinks and cocktails of all sorts, lots and lots of whiskey, wine, beer, you name it. The dance floor is actually fairly populated. And here there's probably 30, 40 people kind of dancing around. The belly dancers are dancing as well to this percussive sort of Egyptian music, which apparently I can only find a minute of that, so I won't loop that, but the sort of drums, and she's, you're in love, Walt, instantly in love. These just absolutely gorgeous women dancing up on the stage. And, in typical fashion for the 20s, is sort of men in their, finery standing near the stage and, whistling and smiling and clapping.
I have a nice reporter back home.
Exactly. You can't forget your girlfriend back in Oregon. What do? As you walk in, now here you draw maybe a little more attention than you did before, because there is a lot going on, and you step in and just sort of stand around.
Well, I've moved to the bar.
Okay. You step over to the bar. Joe, what do?
I follow.
Okay. So,
Scan the room a little bit. Well,
Quietly planning with Joe, like, who do you want to talk to here? I'm not sure where to begin.
it's a good question. We don't really have a whole lot more than the name of the club.
Yeah. An order of beer.
okay, you step up and order a
Get
beer.
something to drink, and we might just have to mingle and see what happens.
Bartender has a thick Egyptian accent. It says, takes your order and turns and proceeds to pump out a pint from a cask, some sort of English beer, served pretty close to room temperature, really. It's not super cold, but he throws them out there. And what did you order, Joe?
I'm gonna go with a nice scotch.
All right, so you order a scotch. He basically charged you 75p for your purchase. And you put your heavy coins down on the table, and he gives you back some change from your pound sterling. New members, are you? He says.
Indeed we are.
Well, cheers. Welcome. Welcome to the Blue Pyramid.
Thank you.
Looks great here.
You are Americans, yes?
Yes.
Huh, come all this way to come to the Blue Pyramid? He laughs.
Well, we were in London and we heard so many recommendations for the place. We decided we absolutely had to drop by and take a look.
It's the best place in London. Best place in Soho for sure, he says.
I won't argue with that.
Exactly.
So you have have your beverage. The bartender gets called away for other things. There's a wide assortment of people in here. You do just kind of soak it in. Seems pretty up and up. You got people dancing around, having a good time.
Mostly I just keep an eye on the crowd for now, see if there's anybody that stands out or...
Give me a spot hidden roll. Let's say
29.
There's really not a lot going on here. I mean, there's, in terms of things that seem off. There are people dancing, smoking, drinking, carousing. There's quite a lot of that.
It's not like we're going to walk into a club and the bad guy's going to wave a giant red flag.
Yeah, you don't notice any sort of shadowy characters sitting around the corners of the room. Although your spot hidden roll does, in fact, note that you're being watched as you watch others. Notice there's a young lady across the room, strikingly pretty, standing with another group, and she's kind of looking over at her shoulder, and you notice that she's kind of watching Walt as Walt looks around, like she's trying to sort out what is it that you guys are looking for, kind of thing. You look at her and you kind of lock eyes for a split second. She looks away, not bashfully, just like oops, kind of thing. What do you do?
I think you've caught the attention of another woman.
Who?
Kind of surreptitiously, make a gesture in her direction.
Okay, he kind of nods over.
Describe her.
She is, again, there's only one lady there, so that must be the one, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's short, dark complexion, beautiful straight hair, kind of down around her cheek. Lots of makeup, but still very, very pretty. Dressed in an evening gown. It's kind of black, and she's got some lace and stuff, sort of flappery looking, kind of outfit. She's with a few guys that have a bit of an odd assortment. There's two Europeans, and kind of light-skinned guys. One's got sort of ginger hair and a curly mustache. The other kind of is balding and is not wearing a scarf. And then the others are sort of Egyptian descent. Kind of glance over. She looks up again as you're kind of looking, and then really looks away, like, oh boy, she's.
I'll go over to her.
You do, okay. You go walk up. Okay. Well, as you approach, the conversation breaks as they will, right? So the guys there with their glasses, and they sort of turn to look at you as you approach, and she looks up expectantly. What do you say?
I'm Walter Adler. Would you like to dance?
Give me a charm roll.
29, 33.
Wow. Okay. Well, so she blushes a bit. You notice she kind of looks at the people she's with, and no one seems to be overly upset. I mean, even back in these days, it wasn't uncommon to ask a woman to dance, even while they were dancing with their own husbands, kind of thing. So, but of course, she says as she holds her hand out, her gloved hand out. You take her and go out onto the dance floor. You're literally watching like, what the? Everywhere we go. What are you doing meanwhile as he goes out? Starts twirling about on the dance floor. How good of a dancer are you?
Reasonably, I don't know what determines that. 55 dexterity?
Yeah, you could say that. I don't think there's really a dance skill. Is there a performance skill? Isn't there something?
I don't see one.
I can tell.
I would say it would be maybe, you could consider that under like, yeah, let's do dexterity, that's fine for now. I guess that's what the empty boxes are for, if you wanted to be like a Fred Astaire sort of dancer. But tell me, I mean, is that a pastime of his? Is that something he's done in the past?
Yeah, I mean, there's not like, well, a lot of stuff to occupy your time, so yeah, dancing would be something to pick up.
Okay.
I can't go on the internet and watch Twitch.
This is true. That's a good plug. Also, hey, what was your roll?
45 out of 55.
Okay, so it's not your best performance.
Yeah,
You're a little nervous.
I'm not trying to show off, just the basics.
Yeah, and she's beautiful. She's actually quite good. Her hips move suggestively, assuming that she may be familiar with some sort of cultural dances, or the body movements are a bit less conservative, shall we say, than the jitterbug and things like that.
And some like who she is, who she hang out with there, and then in return, like, oh, I'm here from America and all that stuff. Small talk.
Okay. She says, my name is Yalisha. Yalisha Esam, she says. And she doesn't really tell you much about herself, really. She says, I have just come here to unwind. It's been a long day, she says, as you dance.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And then, at that point, you sort of mention that you're from America. I would not have known from your exotic accent, she says. So why would you come here? Are you very interested in Egyptian culture? She says, as you sway about the dance floor.
Yeah, I've recently run into it, and this seems to be one of the more popular places here in London.
Yes, well, for people from my homeland, yes. But I like it. It's nice, she says. And how did you come to be a member here? She says.
Kind of visited Empire Spices and
Give me a psychology roll. As you mentioned Empire Spices.
getting closer, but still not good.
You want to push it?
No.
You don't want to push it. Okay. Don't want to risk an adverse effect here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how badly that can go.
Yes. She suddenly shanks you. Yeah. No. You dance about, and the song comes to an end, and she says, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Adler."
This song. Good evening.
She bows to you and kind of goes back to her group. They immediately kind of start asking her questions. You can tell they're leaning in, and one of them kind of makes a bit of a joke and takes a sip of whatever they're saying, probably chiding her in general about her new romance. You return to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, you have finished your whiskey and ordered another at this point by the time the dance is over. Sitting there and just reflecting on things of late. You kind of have to sort of have a moment of sadness thinking about Weathers. He would have been here drinking with you and making fun of Walt's dance moves.
And some other inappropriate comments.
No doubt. Walt returns. What do you do?
So what'd you learn?
Nothing much. It's just here with her friends. She's obviously Egyptian, but she didn't go into much detail.
So you didn't find your future wife like the other gentleman?
No.
The little bit of attention that we're getting, could it be written up to this being a members only place and new faces?
With enough whiskey, it could be written up to be anything you'd like. Probably, yeah. I mean, you're like I said, picture walking into somewhat of a crowded bar.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff going on. You guys walk in, a lot of people probably know each other, and you're new faces. You're not with anyone that is a clear member of note, so yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure who to go here. I just bring up, have you heard any about the murders around here?
You're leaning against the bar there, kind of together, sort of bellied up,
Yeah.
talking in hushed tones.
Yeah.
Do I know anything about them?
No, I said I don't know who we would go to talk to about that. It's not something to just bring up.
No. No. Yeah. You don't walk into a club and start,
I'm gonna go wander around and see if I can hear anything. So I'm gonna go to the other rooms.
Okay.
I'll be back
So you
in a little
split
bit.
up.
Okay.
What are you gonna do? Stay at the bar?
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay at the bar and keep an eye on the people in this room.
Okay. You do that.
I mean, the night's early, so.
It is. It's probably 6:30 at this point, 'cause the doors open at 6. So it's starting to get even more crowded. Which room do you go to? So you've got the coffee room.
Two.
Okay. You make your way down the carpeted hall, the swinging doors closing behind you as you leave and muffling some of the sound a bit. You can still obviously hear the revelry, but
I'm gonna occupy myself by looking at if there's art or something on display in those areas.
yeah, absolutely. There's these paintings of Egyptian sort of scenes, which is pretty cool. Some ancient pharaohs and kind of these old columns and that sort of stuff. Some rubbings of hieroglyphics are in frames here, probably acquired from the Penhew Foundation. You make your way to the doorway, and you can hear again the clinking of coffee and there's wine glasses and things. What do? You step in. There's a small bar for service in the top right corner there. Fireplace burning, a few tables. But there is one there right next to the bar that is not occupied. The rest are.
Oh, I'll go have a seat
Okay.
and get a refill or whatever and have a seat.
Okay. So you go and have a seat. The drink selections available for service here are a bit different. So you wind up ordering a wine or something like that. They can pour for you here. You sit and you're going to make a listen roll.
98.
Whoa. So you wind up getting a little bit distracted. There's a couple guys at the table right next to yours, and they're talking about how they, the guy's grumbling. All of his dirty dealings. I like to punch him right in the mouth. He cost me 300 quid. Another one speaks back. Yes, I told you not to get mixed up with him. He is not the one to trade with. Well, everything seemed to be up and up. Either way, I suppose I owe you one, don't I? Yes, that was the bet. And then back and forth. You find yourself really wanting to get to the bottom of that mystery, and miss out on any sort of immediate talk about let's go murder some people or whatever going on here. Cutting back to to Joe. You hear as you're sitting there at the bar, kind of looking into your beverage. You smell first this sweet scent of perfume. And before you can even turn to see where it comes from, you hear this very sultry voice. Where did your friend go?
Turn and look.
It's this girl. You didn't catch her name. The girl, Elisha, the one that he was talking to, though you don't have her name. She smiles.
He left to step away from the noise for a bit.
Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Will you give him something for me?
Sure.
She hands you a folded up purple napkin.
Take it from her.
As you take it from her, she puts her hand on yours and squeezes tight as if to say, keep it secret, and pushes it towards your chest.
I understand. Slide it into a pocket.
She leans in and says, also give him this. And she kisses you on your cheek. She smiles. And
I'll tell him all this.
You watch her saunter away, and you're thinking, man, yeah, she's something. She's got that just exotic way about her. And you've got this napkin in your hand. It's folded up into fourths or something, folded over twice, a little square.
Yeah, I'll slip that into a pocket.
Okay.
Secret like she wanted.
Yeah, you slip it into your coat pocket. Try to be surreptitious. Let's have a stealth roll, shall we?
6.
Man, no one even sees you move. It's just could be a magic show. So yeah, you sit and finish your drink, wondering, of course, what the hell this thing, what's written in there. It's probably some perverse comment or something.
Rendezvous.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's my room.
So while you sit and you enjoy your drink, it's peace and quiet and downtime and relaxation. It's really just a nice club.
Yeah, I'll relocate and look at some piece of art on the other side of the room.
Okay, so you walk across the room kind of to the other end, sort of walking past tables, and there's a few couples in here, and there's a few gentlemen sitting and talking as friends. One man speaks up and, "Hey, you new around here?"
Indeed I am.
Huh, and American. You've come off a long way.
Yeah.
Sit, have a drink with us, he says.
Sure. I'm Walter Adler.
Hi, good to meet you. I'm James Smithson, he says. You pull up a chair next to his table. It's he and a mate of his, apparently. There's hats and various little odds and ends that they brought with them on the table as they're drinking and apparently playing a game of cards. Do you play cards?
I do.
Ah, excellent. So why don't we deal you in?
All right.
So 1 quid.
Bet.
You fling it in. You start to play cards and have a conversation. Let's see how you do with your gambling. You will make a luck roll.
There's not a lot of that left.
Sorry.
Find a way to improve your luck.
Yeah, for real. 34 out of 18.
So not James, but James's companion, who you come to know as Gerard, who is French, wins. And in the meanwhile, though, you have opportunities to converse while the hand's going on. So how does that play out?
What do they do? What brings them here? With them?
So, James apparently has designs to get into the auto industry. He feels like there's a big fortune to be had in making cars more affordable, and every household needs one kind of thing. You refrain from making any comments about Henry Ford, and that's not exactly a new idea. He seems to have some innovations in mind, though. And Gerard is apparently some sort of financier who they're sort of discussing this business together. Give me a charm roll.
Doesn't work on the dudes.
doesn't work on dudes.
59 out of 33.
Yeah, so the conversation stays fairly surface. It doesn't get much beyond that. There's not like an opportunity for you to be like, "Hey, about those murders."
Yeah, I would ask what do they know about his area and this club.
Yeah. So yeah, you figure out basically that the club is actually owned by a guy named Abdul Nawisha, Nawisha. He can be seen wandering around the club, and Gerard mentions that I believe he is here tonight, actually.
He should really be commended on putting this place together.
Hmm?
He should really be commended on putting this place together. It's really something.
Yeah, it is a nice place. It is not the nicest place in all of Europe, though. Huh?
Okay.
It's, the best in Soho, perhaps.
What would you put up against it?
Oh, there are many places. And he rattles off a list of clubs just around here, and then of course back home in Paris, there, the nightclubs are magnifique, he says.
If I find myself in that part of the world, I'll have to look into them.
So you should, but then you should learn French first, huh? You will not be able to find your way around.
It's like, I did all right picking up Spanish, so.
So you have your conversation and a couple of drinks, and Joe, meanwhile, what are you up to?
I'm gonna watch the dancers. It gives me an opportunity to face out in the room and keep observing the crowd.
And also there's dancers, and that's always good. You sit and
But I
watch.
don't want to get so distracted that I forget to keep an eye on the crowd.
For sure. You sit and watch. You watch the dancers. You watch the crowd dance with the dancers. You see people coming and going. There's really nothing eventful going on here that at the surface is apparent as a problem. There's no ring of people chanting off to the side. There's no one being stabbed through the heart.
Going on.
Right.
After a time of that, I'll go find Walt so I can deliver at least one of the messages.
Okay. So let's hope it's the note. You find Walt at this point, having wandered over into Area 6 after that, sort of about a half hour has gone by, somewhere around there. You reconvene near the fireplace. There, some gentlemen having drinks together and talking business. You overhear something about some financial real estate thing that's going on. Looking for investors. You don't know what it's all about. You approach Walt, and he's clearly there, looking nonchalant, listening, making small talk with a very, very short, sort of rotund Britishman.
I'll wait until he has a moment.
As you walk up, and it's clear that the two of you know each other. This gentleman, Brian by name, speaks up. Well, I'll wander on then. It's a pleasure to meet you there, Walt.
Yeah, good evening.
And you must be Joe, Walt's friend, yes?
Yes.
Ah, good. Well, welcome to the Blue Pyramid, he says.
Thank you. Your lady friend asked me to share this with you, or give this to you.
Do you smooch him on the cheek?
I pulled the folded napkin out.
Okay.
What does it say?
You casually open it up, and your heart skips a bit of a beat. It's kind of exciting. And it says, meet me by the arches at midnight.
All right. What does that look? Not a landmark I should know?
No, not from the limited amount of time that you spent here, no.
Is there anything in this club that could stand out as being called arches?
No. You can make a no roll if you'd like to see if perhaps you picked up on something wandering around. That's your EDU.
37 out of 60.
14 out of 75.
Oh wow.
Should that be the fifth?
Yes, you realize it before it comes to Joe. There are some stone arches sort of at the end of the street, a ways away from here. She must mean those. They're fairly striking, like kind of ancient stone arches. What do you do?
I guess I have an appointment later. I found out the name of, or the owner of the club, the name is Abdul Maisha. And give a description of him if I got that.
Yeah, he didn't really say anything about what he looks like. He basically,
was there.
yeah, that he's there that night. You could probably, if you spent time really focusing on it, sort out who he was. Just from the people that were coming and going, and
The guy going.
Probably the one schmoozing everybody.
probably.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye out for that.
You look for him.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long, kind of going back into the main room, for you to isolate two possible folks that you think could fit the bill of someone that's real gregarious and schmoozing and making sure that they move from person to person. One of them is clearly of Egyptian descent, dark complected, really kind of thick mustache, a bit of a neatly trimmed beard, and dressed to the nines. Absolutely richly dressed. Perfectly fitted suit, silk, and all that sort of stuff. The other guy is European. He's a little bit older, kind of graying, hair on the sides, real, nicely kept short hair, clean shaven, a darker complexion overall, but European sort of dark complexion, tan, I should say. But he's smoking cigarettes and talking to people, and everyone's laughing. It's just that everything he says, people seem to think is hilarious. You watch him move from crowd to crowd. He seems to stay on one side of the room though, for whatever reason, kind of off near the bar. The other guy moves around much more. What do you do?
Does either one of them seem to be like trying to say at least something to everybody, where we can maybe put ourselves in his path to get intercepted?
You think so? So the Egyptian man is, he's absolutely moving from place to place. He's a beast of a guy too. He's big, so like large. You can't possibly lose sight of him even in the crowd. So you could probably
try to find a place where we can position ourselves where he would come to us, but without actually charging right up to him, making it obvious.
Okay. So you put yourself sort of closer to the stage. There's a band kind of off to the side playing various instruments, a little band pit. He's making his way around. As he approaches, what do you do? You try to make sure that you're just in his way, or do you address him somehow?
If he looks like he's going to stop and talk to us, then I want to make it convenient for him to stop and talk to us.
Okay.
If he looks like he's going to stop and talk to us, then we'll go with that.
Okay.
If he looks like he's going to walk right past us, then then we'll stop him.
Okay, so he's moving along, and you sort of position yourselves in a way that you're kind of drinking together and facing him, so that he kind of sees you. You're presenting yourself to him, if you will. You actually lock eyes, and he smiles warmly. His teeth could use a little help, but he's got a warm smile nonetheless. Dimples and his fat cheeks, as he does actually come walking over. New faces, welcome to the Blue Pyramid.
Thank you.
I don't believe we've met, he says.
Joe Miller.
I'm Abdul.
Walter Adler.
Walter, Joe, you are Americans.
Yes.
Excellent, that's the word of our wonderful establishment has gone as far as across the pond. Huh?
World famous, yeah.
Yes, are you enjoying yourselves?
We are.
It's nothing else.
Yes.
Good. I will be here tonight. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
He nods, he pats you on the
This is
back.
your club, yes?
Yes, it is.
You've done a great job with the place.
I try. There's big Egyptian culture in London. We needed a place to gather. Who knew that everyone was going to be so interested in pyramids and pharaohs and things, huh? And
Yes.
turns out all the locals love it as well.
Set up a little piece of home here.
Yeah, of course. But the world is getting very small place these days.
It is. And the goings on in Egypt seem to be all the rage.
All the rage because it is a beautiful place. Have you never been?
We have not
yet.
You think, God, it's coming. You should go. Particularly before everything becomes a city, while there's still some of the old land left.
Yes.
Many mysteries there, It's a very, very old place.
Place of intrigue.
For sure. So what do you do back in America, huh? That you are over here in London?
Well, we're here visiting friends.
No, fair enough. Your friends that sponsored you into the membership here then?
Oh no, that was just a happy coincidence.
But it's fair enough. How did you get involved in? he says.
Miss Zara Safik recommended the club.
Give me a psychology roll, please.
Someday.
Yeah.
No. 26 out of 10.
I'll do it. I'll use 5 luck points to make
You're gonna
that.
use 5 luck points, alright, so you will use 5 luck points to make your roll. He's uncomfortable with something about that name. I will let you ask me 2 questions to clarify that.
You, like, have you had dealings with her before?
He stiffens a bit, though it's clear that he's trying to glaze it over. Yes, yes,
It seems like she really loves this place.
she does. She will be here soon, I'm sure. She's a wonderful woman. She's very, very smart. Second question. Do you have a headache then?
She's how involved is she in a community here, Egyptian community?
Oh, she is very involved. She runs you may know, she runs a spice exchange here in Soho. But she's very involved in the local Egyptian culture for sure, and used to work for the Penn Foundation as well.
Oh, so
Edward Gavigan himself. He's known, since being here and seeing the newspapers, he's in the middle of everything Egyptian. His name comes up a lot.
Yeah.
His name comes up a lot, as you know. He seems, now that he's gotten further into the conversation, he seems to have mellowed out a little bit, but he's definitely, he's hiding something about her.
okay.
You don't think you're gonna get anything out of him, no. He's uncomfortable with whatever it is. Congratulations on your expending luck points.
I'm just gonna drop it down to 0 this some point.
You're shit out of luck. Where do the luck rolls start?
Oh god. Shoot me now.
So, it was wonderful talking to you. If I could do anything, I'll be here. You know me now. You'll come find me and I will help, yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You pat you on the back again. He's getting ready to leave, he calls over one of the waiters. Get these new members something on me, huh? Whatever. And he's, absolutely, sir. He steps forward and takes your drink order. Get you for drink.
And when he's away and we're back to just us, I think that name really rattled him.
The Norman's eyes got a little wide, I think, when you mentioned her name. I wonder if she has some influence around here, or people are scared of her.
Seems to be the case.
He said she'd be showing up with her. Maybe we should wait and see what her entrance is like.
Yeah.
You sit and drink a bit more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try not to overdo the drinking.
Yeah, that's why I was doing the beers.
Okay. So you keep yourselves more or less sober, but in order to keep up the facade, you have to keep the drinks kind of flowing. So you sort of nurse them and change locations frequently.
I'll
So
just take an opportunity to like go outside or in fresh air and talk
Okay.
with the bouncer.
okay, you do. So you head out for a fresh air and a smoke. You know, because that's how you do. You make your way, back down the stairs, with a bit of a buzz, not a heavy one, but enough of one. Step out, it's cold at this time of year in London, so
Refreshing.
We'll go with them since we're kind of there together. Anyway.
yeah. So you both spark up a cigarette.
Oh, I guess seems like a nice enough neighborhood. Any issues here?
No issues that I can take care of, huh? He
Yeah.
says, this big, burly guy, and he laughs.
That would be pretty dumb with you.
No, unless you are afraid of artists and musicians, Soho is fine. Soho is fine. Yeah, we get to, once in a while, the drunk people that have to get beat down. But that's what I live for.
And this is not in conversation, but the murders happened in this area.
Yeah, they did.
And that one was just 2 days ago?
Yep, easy enough to be like, hey, that, yeah.
Yeah, I was reading the paper the other day and it was like, there's some murder or something around here and it's not like the first time.
Give me a fast talk roll.
I used 2 more to get it.
You expend 2 more luck points. Awesome. So you yeah, there have been some problems around, yeah, murders. Nothing around here though. You are safe. It's fine. It's fine. He says. The Scotland Yard is. I read that they are working on it. They believe they may have some clues. He says.
Yeah, I don't want to get shanked when I'm stumbling home drunk tonight, man.
You don't worry. Someone comes at you, you tell them to come find me. Huh? I'll take care of them. May I bum one of your
Of course.
He gives him a cigarette. He lights it up. Oh, fine American tobacco, he says, with kind of a bland look on his face as he looks at the burning cigarette. You try to get any more information out of him?
It was like, I'm sorry if there's like anyone that was a regular here, I know you.
Oh, yeah. Those things, they do happen. They do happen for sure, he says. And actually one of our members was killed. More than one, he says.
It seems from what we saw in the papers that a lot of the murders have been, or a lot of victims have been Egyptian nationals.
Exactly. I think it's maybe a little bit of, how you say, racism.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Awful. Something one do not find here. Usually, he says. As much.
So you do get some closed-minded people from time to time.
There are some everywhere you go. You know? Here it's bad in America, huh?
Yeah.
In some parts, like most places, some are better than others.
Perhaps you disobedient colonists will open your eyes soon, huh? You come back into the empire.
Yeah, we're on you. You're going to send your people there at any moment. 30 seconds.
Yeah, when we get around to it. But first tonight we have drinks and enjoy. He takes a big pull of the cigarette and stomps it out after a few minutes of conversation and smoking and whatnot. And he steps over as 2 other individuals approach. One of them is Zara Safik. She is dressed immaculately. Sort of beautiful evening gown with this sort of fur stole kind of thing. She walks up, she's wearing her high heels, and on her arm is a younger man. He's probably in his mid-20s, incredibly handsome, European. His hair done just so, his suit fitted just right. All of his sort of accessories tying exactly back into his outfit. She looks at you over her shoulder as she kind of approaches the door and smiles. And you notice the doorman doesn't even challenge her. He just he says something quietly to her and nods. And she smiles at him and walks in. What do? Your cigarettes are growing very, at this point you would have finished yours.
Yeah,
Right?
I think we're done and heading back in.
Yeah.
After
Put it out and head back in. We kind of wanted to see what sort of buzz she generates when she arrives.
Okay. So you try to kind of move in, and it's easy enough to catch her. She moves kind of slowly up the stairs with her gown and her high heels and whatnot. Not creeping, but slower than you can move, for sure. You wind up actually entering together. As she approaches the door, the man kind of holds it open for her and bows down, and she smiles and drapes her hand across his as she passes. She looks over her shoulder at the 2 of you. Ah, Joe and Walt, she says.
Miss Zara.
I am so glad to see you made it and that you're okay, she says.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much for your help, brother.
Well, of course, it's what I am here for. But tonight I'm here to drink and dance, sing, she says. She kind kind of saunters back and forth a bit. Of course I see, she says.
I look forward to hearing.
Doesn't everyone have song inside of them?
Yes, but some of us are better at bringing it out than others.
People would pay me not to sing.
You make your way back in. It's a similar situation, although you notice that as she wanders around, everyone, with the exception of a few here and there that maybe don't know who she is, take note and are kind of watching her, waving, smiling. There's that whole long, everyone walking up to her and hugging her, kissing her on the cheek, kissing her on the hand, that sort of thing. Give me a spot hidden roll.
42.
I'm going to say Walt.
8.5, but I think
Walt,
I think you did better.
absolutely. You notice, you almost instantly, your eyes jump to Abdul, the manager. He does not approach. In fact, you notice that he goes the other way. He tries to kind of make his way away from her notice. It's subtle. It's not like he gasps and runs the other direction. But you see him look up at her, and she's being surrounded by 2 or 3 guys and a lady. He kind of looks up and looks down at the ground and makes his way toward the back. You point this out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Looks like a duel trying to avoid her.
I don't know what's between them. Toward the back, meaning leaving the room, or?
Yeah, well, it's sort of in the back corner. There's only one way out, which is the front door.
Okay,
So it's just a big room. He's over kind of behind the band, sort of in the corner, making himself look busy at what looks like to be a waiter's tray on a stand. He's doing something with a pitcher and some glasses.
In my head, this place is a fire hazard.
It is a bit of a fire hazard. You think to yourself, you get them all at once.
Not that crazy yet.
What do you do?
You think we can lean on Abdul? Get more information about Zara?
Possibly, yeah, especially if we can get him away from the crowd.
Just observing for now, I think.
Okay. So you observe for a time. Quite a lot of time passes. You wind up dancing with a couple of girls, meeting up with a few people and drinking. It's casual conversation. It's easy to slip into the club atmosphere. People here are having a generally good time. There's an assortment of dancers that comes and goes, kind of almost on shifts. It's getting on really closer to say 11:30 when finally you have an opportunity to talk to Abdul. In the meanwhile, you have observed that Safiq is just kind of wandering around, talking, dancing. She dances with a few men. It's clear that she's influential. Everyone wants to talk to her, but she's not mobbed with people, so it seems like she's just well connected to the community. You overhear in one situation where she's asking about someone's kids by name, that kind of stuff. Abdul, you ultimately find yourself kind of in the sitting room there, and he's come in and making his rounds and catches you by the fireplace. Still here. That's what I like to see. He smiles.
Yes, like we said, it's a great club.
Have you been treated well?
Impeccably.
Ah, good, he says. What do you attempt to ask of Abdul?
Are there people, do we have a moment where there's not somebody immediately nearby that would overhear us? Or?
The closest folks to you at the moment are about from you to the couch over there, so what's that, about 20 feet?
Right.
Something like that.
Is
So
there's music playing in this room?
no.
No, so this is.
You can hear the muffled music from the main room.
Okay.
This room, you get the kind of crackle of the fire and, hushed conversation.
Okay, so then we're gonna try to keep our conversation hushed until
Okay.
we don't necessarily overheard. So it seems like everybody here knows Miss Safiq.
Yes, she is well known in Soho. Everyone has to get spices from somewhere. Yes.
Yes.
He laughs.
Yeah, but it didn't look like you were too keen on her arrival.
He stops and, what makes you say that? He says,
You seem like you're avoiding her.
well, she's influential here at the club as well, and things tend to go her way. So, I am the manager, but if I cannot manage, I stay out of the way. These aren't things we should be talking about, he says. She's a lovely woman, believe me.
The very mention of her name shook you up earlier.
Give me a...
Intimidate.
Are you going to use intimidate? Are you going to lean forward and intimidate? Okay. So you darken your tone and give me an intimidate roll.
100.
Oh!
Well, he stiffens as you lean in and your expression darkens, your tone changes, and his changes to match yours. I'm not really sure what you are trying to say, but I'm going to assume that your attitude with me right now is an honest mistake. Or should I call the bouncers?
I'll get.
I'm going to try to comment.
Oh, fast talk, please.
What my friend is lacking in social graces sometimes. Please pardon his attitude. We're just
Give me a roll.
a little bit concerned, and she seems like she might be more of a threat. Shit. 93.
Well, manners and no manners. This kind of attitude is not welcome here.
Can you push that amount of a failure?
You can. You can push any roll you want.
Okay. Is this it?
Although, so I should let you can make another attempt
At that point,
because it's been a moment.
yeah.
But it could be much worse.
Following up, yeah. 69 out of 88.
So he still doesn't seem terribly rattled. He's getting the fact that you're serious. What is it that has you so interested in Miss Peak? She was your ticket to getting in here, yes? So clearly there's an acquaintance there. Why don't you ask her whatever your concern is? I have no problem with her. She's a fine woman. Have a good evening. He turns and walks away.
You too.
He looks over his shoulder as you say that with a bit of a scowl, like, you know, whatever kind of thing, as you say you too.
Oh, it could have gone better.
You're thinking, I should actually beat the shit out of him now, so he'll realize just how scary I am.
I'm gonna go head to the arches since it's probably about midnight.
Okay. You'll start to head to the arches.
How long is the club open?
Huh?
How long is the club open?
You don't know.
I'll ask.
Okay. So who do you ask? There's a guy sitting on the couch.
A waiter, somebody
Okay.
who's
This guy walking past with a tray.
Yes.
He's spilled a little something on his shirt. Looks like he's been very busy tonight. He stops. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What may I get you?
How long is the club open?
2 midnight. 2 midnight. He goes, yeah, but you know, if you're still drinking, we'll stay open for you. He smiles. Can I get you a beverage?
No, I'm good.
All right. And you, sir?
No, thank you.
He seems surprised, and off he goes.
Maybe I should come with you.
Yeah, stay discreetly back, just in case something goes horribly wrong.
Alright.
And we will pause here for a brief beverage and bathroom break, and also to split up the audio file.
Oh, creepy music.
So
Loading.
you leave the Blue Pyramid and walking out past the doorman, bidding him farewell. Other people are filing out as well, going in this direction or that, having been drinking since 6. Many of them are clearly drunk, staggering along, laughing. The girls having kicked off their high heels so they can walk after a night of dancing, sore feet and such. You head up the street toward the arches where you were told to meet Yalisha. It's really foggy. It's one of those foggy London nights that makes everything look surreal and scary. Fog literally can be seen rolling in like fingers between the buildings.
It's not creepy at all.
You walk forward along these shadowy streets, allowing most of the sort of other club goers to pass you up and make their, exit so that they're out of sight as far as you can tell. Ahead you see these stone arches between the fog and the muted light of the moon and the street lights. They look pretty ominous in the distance as you approach. In fact, between the arches, you can't even really discern what the hell's going on.
Which might be why she picked it.
Killing crocs on foggy nights in the war, so.
This actually brings back memories of some of those nights that were too quiet, where only seconds after you thought, hey, it's so quiet and peaceful, gunfire erupted. You can almost hear the bullets zipping by your head. You approach the arches. What do you do as they come, say, within 50 yards?
The who? What?
The arches.
Oh, I'm just going to the arch.
You just walk straight up?
Yeah.
Okay. No particular
Since it's pretty
preparations?
quiet, listening.
Okay.
I'll kind of look around, see if I can see anything, through the fog, and try to look for the shadowy areas, see if I can see anything that.
So you try to break
cautious
off
of.
and go somewhere else? You stay right with Walt? What's your...
I'm staying near Walt, but I'll move away from him enough to sort of scout the area a little bit.
Okay. You give me a spot hidden in stealth roll. Stealth first, please. And you give me a listen roll as you're approaching.
No on the stealth, 49 out of 45. I'll go ahead and add my luck points to that.
Okay.
Make it a 62.
So you zip off in front of this pharmacy that happens to be on the corner. Zip around the corner. There's a light post there that between the shadows and the fog obscures you pretty well. You light up a cigarette as you would the flare of the match lighting your face, and that's about it. You see him disappear kind of into that haze. You approach.
39 out of 96, so that beats a half for the spot hidden.
Okay. So you're looking around, you notice in a doorway in front of what would appear to be a men's clothing shop, tailor type place. There's a figure bundled up kind of in the doorway, close enough to the arches to probably see what's going on, but certainly not close enough to hear.
Okay.
As you watch, the figure sort of kind of pulls its coat tighter, squishes up closer into the doorway. He's in a prone position, gives you the impression that maybe it's a homeless person.
Okay.
Rolled a 10 out of 75 on the listen.
Okay. You, as you're walking along, you hear this sort of coughing sound. And the same individual I just described, you kind of glance and you catch him out of the corner of your eye in the doorway as you walk past. And in the distance as well, you can hear the sound of a constable's whistle. Not particularly, erratic, just sort of something's going on over that way. Probably public drunkenness or something of the sort. You
Light up a cigarette.
light up a smoke. You see the flare of his match from across the street lighting up. You see a big puff of smoke literally just disappear from his mouth up into this cloud of fog that's rolling in. You approach, and you do in fact see a figure wearing a dainty coat, overcoat. It's white, stands out a lot against a kind of gray stone. She's tucked into the shadow. Her high heels are in her hand, and she has a bat clutched under her arm. She seems to be by herself. What do you do?
Good evening, Mrs.
You what?
Good evening, or greeter.
Okay, so you approach, say good evening. She smiles, and you don't get much of a romantic vibe from her as much as you were expecting. You don't get that sort of
No,
sultry look.
I was hoping for a trap, honestly.
Okay. You were hoping for a trap, so you just walk right up to her.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm glad you could make it, she says.
Mhm.
You're in danger, she says.
Yeah, I know.
Your faces are known, as are your names. I have heard them whispered.
I've already put one man in the hospital.
It is much worse than that. These are not thugs. These are murderers.
I've heard of them and we're all getting into them.
They do not suffer those who stand in the way of their plans. You should go.
You can tell me what you know about them.
Give me a persuasion. Is that a thing?
It is. It's not something I leverage out.
Persuade.
32 out of 43.
Not bad. Believe me, I know that these men are dangerous, she says. She shakes a bit as she says it.
Well, I'll be honest
My
with you.
Badru was killed for asking questions. And some of his questions were not as invasive as the ones you are asking. I don't want to see any more death.
Well, to be honest, we're ultimately here to put an end to it.
Then you should be more careful in ignoring about me right there. I keep looking at her. She holds up binoculars so that she You should be much more careful with your inquiries.
I tend to lean on intimidating people more than
They are
persuading.
not afraid. Walter, they are not afraid of you. They are not afraid of anyone. They kill as they wish. The police are either paid for or clueless. My Badru, his murder went unsolved. It has been a year now.
What happened to him? Where was he? Who was he
taken.
talking to?
He told me, he said, he believed that there was something more to what these men were doing. He said that sometimes he saw a group get in a truck during the month. He worked at the Pyramid Club. They would gather and go away together in a truck and then come back. And he said they all seemed to be in a trance. But that's not the big part. The big part is when they would return the next morning, a couple of days later, the papers would read of a murder. And still to this day, I have been watching. Each month, they leave. Each month, a victim is found.
Any idea who was getting in the truck?
She looks around, clearly nervous. I believe that they are led by Zara Safik.
Everyone who knows her in any detail seems to be extremely nervous. I've heard people that don't know her are generally content.
Yes, she is not what she seems.
She's been involved with some other things too, for the Penny Foundation. She's connected to some things we're looking into.
The Penny Foundation. Badru spoke of that as well. He believed that there was a connection there. Then he disappeared. And I'm afraid to leave because the Brotherhood has eyes everywhere. This cult he spoke of.
Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh.
Yes, that is what he called it. You must understand. This is beyond you. I know you are American and you are very brave, but I sense you have a good heart. I don't want to see it cut out.
I appreciate the thought. Are those friends of yours at the club keep an eye on you? Help you out if you need it?
Perhaps I do have some friends, but it is hard to know who to trust.
Abdul seemed incredibly nervous of Zara.
Yes.
Is he being forced into letting his club be used like this?
The club itself is fine. Well, now and again people disappear from there. But I believe he is a good man. I think she pays him off. Have you seen the clothes he wears?
No.
She turns. I am putting myself at risk by talking to you. I just wanted to warn you.
You can send a letter discreetly to our hotel with anything you can think of that Roger might have uncovered.
Give me a persuade roll.
46 out of 43. And we'll go down to 8 left.
Well, she takes your information about your hotel. You realizing ironically you had just said you were going to stop giving that out.
Just to the hotel, not like our room number.
Yeah. You as you kind of grasp her by the shoulders, and it's important to kind of reinforce your point. She sobs slightly. I will. If there are any other details, I will get them to you. But you must understand, this is dangerous. The entire Scotland Yard has not been able to solve this problem.
If you knew the things I've dealt with before, just wish me luck.
Do that whole that whole Cary Grant, just wish me luck, babe, kind of thing. And she a tear rolls down, and you kind of brush it away with your thumb, and you kind of part ways. She says, "Walter." You turn. There's an awkward moment of silence. You were a good man.
It's good to hear that sometimes.
She turns and disappears into the shadow of an alley, leaving you in this cold London night. What do you do?
Light up another one.
Light up, put that one out, light up another one.
Walk it back to Joe.
Okay. Joe, you've watched from afar the homeless guy sort of laid there and minded his own business. Okay. Every once in a while, kind of changing position on the uncomfortable concrete.
Was the conversation audible from here?
Oh no, not at all. Because you're, 50 yards away,
Right.
and
Just wanted to be sure.
you couldn't even see her from here. You knew, right? Either he's standing there peeing for a really long time, or he had found her because he stood still and you could tell he was talking to someone. You see him walk across the street. Joe steps out from the shadow.
We'll meet him halfway.
Okay.
And start walking back to our place. Mrs. is terrified of what we're investigating. She's lost someone close to her, I think. And she warned me to stay away from it.
Any information that would be helpful?
Just that her Badru was looking into this and was killed. And he would see a group get into a truck from the club and come back, and they didn't seem right when they got back, like they're in a trance. And then a couple days after that happened, there'd be a murder in the paper. She's highly suspicious of Zara. She thinks that the club owner is being paid off to deal with this, but is otherwise like a decent person and might not know the exact details, or just doesn't want to ask, or is afraid to ask. And the Brotherhood of the Black Pearl is a familiar name to her as far as what's going on here.
So, almost as if on cue as you say that, you notice there's this strange shift in, maybe it's in the air, the hair on the back of your neck stands up. You hear this kind of from behind you. What do you do?
Turn quick and
Turn
Yes,
around,
kind of
ready to
sidestep
fight.
at the same time in case there's something
You
coming at us.
step out to the side, you turn, and you look, and this fog is so thick. This London fog is legendary to begin with, but it's so thick. You can hear the sound. It's about, say 20 yards away at this point. This, and then you see it. The homeless guy is up off of the ground at a height of about 12 feet and rising. He's struggling clearly as the fog is spinning and coalescing, moving him around. What do you do?
Run towards him.
Run toward him. What do you do? Run away from him?
I do the same thing.
Okay, you start running deeper into this fog.
As we're moving towards it, I try to look and see, is there anybody
Like
that could be doing something?
Give me a spot hidden roll.
if his, like, is 12 feet to him and his feet, or 12 feet to him and what's got him?
It's 12 feet to his feet at this point.
If there's something between me and him where I can get a little bit of elevation, like, I'm gonna try and grab
You
him.
see a bench.
Okay.
You can make an acrobatic roll.
Oh God.
Okay, so you start running forward Matrix style. Well, you kind of
72 out of 96.
okay. So you look into the fog. And you think you see a central point where the fog seems to be moving. Something's moving the fog, and it seems like snakes made out of fog or worms made out. You don't understand what you're looking at. There is a central point. There's not someone there, but there's something there. Walt, what's your
There's
what's
no
your-
acrobatics. There's
No.
dexterity.
Yeah, go ahead for dexterity. I think that will work.
46 out of 55.
You full on run, jump up with one foot onto that park bench and vault yourself up and grab a hold of this guy's leg. Obviously this is uncomfortable. It's kind of, an ankle, something to hold on to. So you got both hands kind of hanging on his ankle, trying to pull him down.
Both feet against the wall and just push off if I can to yank him from it.
Okay, so you there right next to the building where he was laying, right? So you kind of swing
It's gonna hurt
naturally
when I land.
and push like hell. It's as if he's being held up by something much stronger than you. You swing out and you hear a snap as his knee gives way with the weird angle, and you're pushed back. And just at that moment, you, Joe, see blood pouring from his nose and mouth. The homeless guy, not him, going. He's trembling fast in a really unnatural way, and then something clearly penetrating from his rear end, which you can see, rips him into two pieces from the inside out. You have a leg. You hear this rain of blood and entrails all over you as you hit the steps that he was sleeping on, taking no appreciable damage, but knocking the wind out of you. So you'll operate at a penalty for 2 rounds. You hit the ground. You land with his leg and about half of his torso, some ribs and stuff still held together by skin and sinew. Hits the ground. His head topples, smacking and rolling away. And there's just kind of, the only thing that you can make out because of all the gore is this weird intertwining of like these snake shapes made out of vapor. What do you do?
Roll, crawl away.
Okay. You turn and get to your hands and knees and get ready to roll. What are you doing, Joe?
I was moving towards where the focal point of this to try to see if there's
Okay.
somebody or something there to.
Give me a perception roll, or a spot hidden roll. I mean, you're moving that direction.
34 out of 96.
Okay, so you're moving up, taking quite a penalty for the adrenaline and all this sort of stuff. You still succeed. He turns and starts to crawl, and you notice it starts to move directly toward him. He's crawling into this little slight amount of lamplight that's coming in, and this thing comes toward him and recoils away from the light, but snags at his leg as if it's going to tear it off.
I like that leg.
So, though you don't see any material form, you feel it's almost like being wrapped in thorn bushes. It's wet and slimy, but there are like these teeth that sink into the flesh of your calf as it wraps around you and locks into your meat. You feel this as you take 2 points of damage. What do? You see him, and around his leg, the sort of the cloth of his pants sort of tears, and you can see blood and whatnot there.
Did I notice the whole recoil from
You
the
did,
light?
absolutely. You notice it,
I'm
whether
gonna
you put two and two
change
together.
my direction and charge toward him.
Okay,
My thought is to try to grab him and pull him into the light.
okay,
At the same time, I'm going to draw my revolver.
okay.
And I think I'm going to try to shoot at the thing, is grabbing him.
Okay, so let's break that down. So the first thing, you're going to use your movement and move up to him, and you're going to try to, so you'll hold the action of shooting. You're going to have to try to use your full action to kind of get him out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can use, what do you think about like, Jesus, is there a drag person out of tentacles skill? Why don't we use,
Not really.
it's for hand-to-hand combat, it's not a brawling.
Yeah.
There is a brawling.
Why is it not written in?
It's
Fighting.
fighting.
Never mind. Yeah. So let's have a fighting roll. We'll use that just to grapple.
45 out of 87.
You come in and tackle, football tackle him. He's down on his hands and knees, mind you. So the two of you kind of roll closer to the light. Now let's have a strength roll and see if you can pull when this is opposed.
Okay.
It's actually going to have a regular success, so you'll need to beat that or you will be sort of locked in a grapple.
So I got a 66 out of 65.
So that's not quite. You're
So I'm going to spend the 1 luck point.
Okay.
Like it was disappearing everywhere left and right.
Yeah, so you burn 1 luck point, and what that allows you to do is basically keep it from dragging him further into the dark, but you're not able to pull him all the way into the light. The one thing that you do notice, you put your whole back into it, and your legs, and you're both now on the ground, right? So you kind of are pushing with your legs as you pull his upper body. You pull, and some part of this thing moves into the light, and you hear this from somewhere. You don't know where. There's no mouth. It's just coming from the space around you as it clearly recoils from this light. You feel it tighten as he pulls you. It tightens down on your calf, and you feel the skin just tearing as he pulls you. It's agonizing, but you are at least moving seemingly to safety. It is going to try to tear your leg off this round. What are you going to do?
Like dig in with the leg that's not entangled and like push the direction he's pulling me.
Okay, and you have your hands as well, and kind of nearby you is the brick facade of this building that the guy was sleeping at. You could probably get your hands there and dig in and try to pull. So let's do that. Let's have a strength roll.
Oh, 96.
Oh, so you reach out and you kind of grasp at the edge of a brick, and your fingers slot in between the bricks, and then it just kind of crumbles loose. You're not able to hold your hold.
Discombobulated from landing upstairs.
Yes, for sure. What do you do, Joe? So you were going to try to shoot at it. Would be your action this round if you stay the course of action.
I'm going to focus on getting him into the light because I'm going to have to let go with one hand if I'm going to get my gun out.
Okay.
Flashlights are too big to just carry around, right?
No. In fact, I would assume as an investigator, you probably do carry your flashlight.
And then
They're big-ish, but
then
still.
I'll go for that instead of the gun.
Okay, so you go for
Try
that.
to get my flashlight out while I pull him with one hand. I'm going to try to get the flashlight out and shine it directly on his leg.
Okay, so you pull your flashlight as sort of your move and your free action, and I'm going to ask you to just give me a base dexterity roll just for aim.
59 out of 80.
So
from the ninja.
yeah, so not a problem. It wasn't a matter of if so much as a matter of when. You shine this flashlight and it reflects off of all this fog, and suddenly it's just like white. But the crazy thing is you can see a form that is equal parts vapor and fog. It's like it's sucking the fog into itself to cloak it. You shine the light on it, and there's this really loud shriek that echoes across off of the buildings around you. You feel a sudden cessation of the tension as it lets go of your leg. You instinctively pull it up to you. You can feel the wet, sticky blood and God knows what else all over you. It recoils. So you see the fog. It almost goes up like a wave as these sort of tentacle things kind of coalesce and spin around and panic, and it kind of goes up like this as if it's going to sort of crash at you. You've got your light shining down and you're sort of looking
Shine
up.
the light at it and directly at it.
You turn instinctively, shining your light up, and again you just, and it separates in a weird way that you can't even comprehend. Like there's no shape to this thing. It's forever changing. Your hearts are racing like crazy, and it goes in two different directions, two different masses.
Get into the center of the light.
Okay, you back up in the lamplight and around with your, what do you do?
If I pick up on light being effective on this, I'll get out my flashlight.
Okay.
Help.
You see him waving his flashlight around. You pull yours out and start shining it around as well.
It's afraid of the light.
I'll try and hit it with the lightsaber.
Okay. you shine your light all around, and
He's
within a
going to
few
one side, I'll go to the other side.
Yeah.
and what, do you stay there? Do you?
For now, yeah.
Yeah, in the light source. For
Okay. You stay there for a bit. It gets quiet, and suddenly it's hard to tell if you're shining light on creature or fog. The fog is so dense.
I'll turn it off and sit for a little bit.
You turn off the beam of light, stops kind of shining out into the fog. You've still got the lamp light, but it's just this weird globe. Even as close as you are to it, it's hard to make out the form of the lamp itself up on the pole.
Where's the next nearest lamp?
It's about about every block.
Okay.
See if we can make it to the next one in the direction of getting back to the hotel.
There's, as you're standing there and kind of thinking about, all right, let's charge to the next one, you're looking down at this absolute wreck of what used to be this guy. It looks like whatever it was penetrated him from the inside and literally just burst out all of his orifices and ripped him apart like a piece of cooked chicken.
Yeah, no one that happened to me. And there's nothing we can do for him now.
Move towards the edge of the light,
Okay.
but kind of look around and see if we notice any change in the patterns in the fog.
Oh, give me sanity rolls. Both of you.
That was coming at some point.
9. Fuck you.
13.
13 of what?
47.
Are you nearly as mentally ill as Walt is?
No,
Okay.
I'm sitting at 47.
All right. So you hold it together. This is more tactical. It's like you've survived a battle, like back in the war. Now what? Right? You step to the edge of the light.
Not a whole lot worse than the guy that got caught in the machine gun fire.
Yes. Is your flashlight off or on?
Off, because
Okay.
I'm
Conserve battery.
No, I'm wanting to see if the thing's still out there. So I figure if the flashlight's on, it's
Mhm.
probably going to be a little more
Okay.
scared.
So
So
you.
I'm going to turn mine off, move a little closer to the edge of the light, trying to keep in mind about where it let go of him,
Okay.
and see if we notice any change in the patterns.
So you're listening and watching, and your imagination makes shapes out of the fog that aren't there.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
But then there's a sudden movement, and it's, you can't see it, but you sense it. It's like a move through the air. And you see this, one of the trees near the park bench that he did his vault off of just sort of shudders, like something just darts through it all of a sudden.
How far away would that be from us?
Like from you to the wall.
So the direction the branches are moving is the
It's coming through. It's like it's moving through.
Towards
Yes,
us?
absolutely.
I
Yes.
step back into the light.
You step back into the light and you sense this smallness of space, right? As you see the fog moving, and it moves. It's interesting because the fog generally has a drift to it.
Right.
This is not moving at all. It's just sort of there, and it's really close and looming. You feel closed in.
One like flashlights on and on 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say I try to time it about the time when to coincide with the movement of the tree, and if I feel like it's about the right time that the thing would be getting close to where we're at,
Okay.
I'll tell Walt now and shine my flashlight in that general area.
Okay. So you say flashlights on 3, and you're like, hang on my go, and you do that, and you.
Yeah.
Now, when you shine your lights, there is a hellish shriek coming out of nowhere. It's so much more scary, right? Because there's no maw, there's no dripping fangs to focus on, just this sound, this ambient shriek that as it goes different directions out into the fog. And a couple seconds later, again, it's still. Your hearts are just. You're sweating despite the fact that it's cold. You're stuck here.
I wonder if maybe right after it splits, if we could make it to the next lamp.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the opportunity to use a scarf or something to wrap up my leg so it's not as bad or bleeding or whatever.
You
And check it for anything trying to get in me.
okay.
As these things are wont to do.
You look down at the wound. It's bad. It literally is like hundreds of tiny teeth that this thing seems to have on whatever appendage was around you. but it's superficial, so you're gonna be okay. You wrap it up to stop the bleeding. It hurts like all hell. I mean, just think of what a paper cut feels like, right? It's like a lot worse. And it's like you've stepped on 100 nails. Is sort of what it feels like. Curse to you that you haven't had a tetanus shot, if that's even a thing right now.
So we try to do that again. Wait for some sense of the thing coming at us. Try to catch it and get it to disperse or split or whatever it's doing again.
Okay.
And then immediately after it does that, we're going to charge towards the next link.
Okay. You do. So you shut the lights off. You step sort of shoulder to shoulder out into the dark, out sort of at the very edge. And with the fog the way it is, the light literally looks like a globe. Like you can see it's like a line where it ends, where the fog gets too dense for it to penetrate. As soon as you step out, you sense something's not right. Again, with the fog, there's movement. This time not in the trees. There's movement kind of out in the open, which is scary because you can't make out the form well enough to understand where it's coming from. It could be right here, right now. You don't know. What do you do?
Get any kind of sense of where it might be, and it.
Okay, so you just immediately turn the light on right then? Okay, so you do, and you feel very thankful that you have, because literally it was right here. You shine the light up and you feel the motion of this thing around your outstretched arm. You feel the incidental nick of the saw teeth as it starts to flip out again, out and up into the open. As you chase it with your light and you chase it with yours, it splits into different sources and you run.
We charge the next one.
Give me your dexterity roll.
Oh God, 89 out of 55.
40 out of 80.
Okay, so you sprint and you're like, come on, Walt, let's go, come on. You sprint, you take about 5 steps and you realize that your wounded leg is numbing. It's hard, it's stiffening with whatever, ichor this thing has put in you, to the point where your muscles don't want to respond. You're lagging behind and you can hear it chasing you. What do? You hear this, it's like Evil Dead kind of coming up behind you sort of thing.
Well, try and go as fast as I can and yell, go Joe, go.
You say, go Joe, you hear this sort of, the chase cam is happening, right? The wide angle chase cam right behind you, and this, you run, you arrive at the next light, literally sprinting the whole way there in your nicest dress shoes and whatnot. You turn to look and he's behind. I'm gonna give you one more attempt to dexterity your way there.
I shine my light at him.
Not today. 98.
Whoa, so you're running, your leg goes completely numb and you lose a sense of your steps. You fall onto the pavement with a thud hitting your face as you do. You shine the light that direction and you see the light goes just far enough into the fog to see the form swelling up around him, and it's literally like fingers doing this, as if it's going to plunge downward.
I charge back towards him.
You charge back toward him.
With the light at the creature.
Okay, so you're running, yelling, running toward it. So, give me a dex roll.
Me?
2.
Wow,
0 and 2.
Incredible. So it was opposed, but it actually rolled like an 85. So your adrenaline takes over. You've never run this fast in your life. You just turn and just haul ass back. You're like, get away from him! And literally, you've turned over instinctively, trying to your face, you're trying to get your bearings to see what's going on. You, for the first time, make out this form. You can see it as if it weren't transparent. Your adrenaline is just making you, your eyes are just like, it plunges downward at your chest. Just as it's about to penetrate your chest, there's this cone of light that hits it, and it literally spills across your chest, more like water or vapor that's heavier than air, just on the heels of that though, out here in the fog with less light around you, the ass end of it starts to curl up higher than you're aiming the light as you're shining it down, as if it's going to spear at you. What do?
It's already kind of
It's splashed apart toward the bottom, and its rear end, which is in the dark, is starting to curl up, almost like a scorpion tail. Okay, so you shine it up on that. Just as you do that, the bottom starts to curl together again.
I'm gonna fist it with my flashlight.
Okay, so start a new round. It's going to have the initiative, just because of the situation. So it's going to attempt to attack you before you can do it. Oh Jesus! It's going to roll a 5. So you're kind
Is
of
there any opportunity to like dodge?
yeah. You can fight back, which is kind of would be hitting it with the light before it hits you, or you can dodge, which would mean you're sort of diving off to the side because you realize.
Fight back would be a what?
Let's use brawling for this. Let's use fighting.
I'll do that. 58 out of 87.
Okay. So you quickly bring the flashlight to bear just as this thing is heading toward you, and literally you can see the light saw through it as it's plunging toward you. It just splits around the cone. You feel the rush of it past you. It stinks. You smell burning hair, like this intense scent of burning hair. You are unharmed. What do you do?
Is it still over me, or did it?
Yeah, yes, in fact it is. So as you're turned over, you see this going on, and you can kind of see the motion back and forth. You sort of look, and the it's coalescing again into like these kind of grabbers.
There's a flashlight in it.
Okay. Give me a fighting roll as well. It is going to attempt to fight back.
59 out of 89.
54. Yeah, so you looked at it. Yeah, so that beats not quite half, right? You shine the light up quickly, and again it disappears. It just sort of dissipates. What do you do?
Take the opportunity to get up and go head
Okay.
towards Joe.
You get up. Your leg is numb. It's so weird. Give me a dexterity roll, please.
29 out of 55.
29 out of 55. So you stand, and adrenaline carrying you forward more than anything. You just start to haul ass and bolt toward that lamp. Joe, you see Walt kind of limping past you. Clearly something's going on with his leg, and you just sprawl out in the lamplight, turning over and kind of righting yourself. What do you do as he runs
Go back
past?
to the lamplight.
Okay, you step back as well. Give me a dexterity roll.
89.
9 out of 80. So you step backward, stumbling a bit on a grate, but with your light at bay, it doesn't approach anymore.
I keep scrambling back.
Okay, it's almost as if it might have had enough.
Once we're in the lamplight, we'll wait a few minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll try the same trick again to get closer with turning off the flashlights. But I'm not going to get near as close to the edge of the light as we did the last time where we turned them off at the last second.
Okay, so you've got one more. The area of fog is getting thinner, and it's almost like as you look off in the distance to the next lamplight or the next lamppost, you can tell that would be freedom. It's much more sparse there. The bank of fog is literally, it's eerily focused in this area. So you step toward the edge with your lights out yet again.
Yes, and see what happens.
Okay. It's longer this time. You stand there, and it's quiet long enough that you almost feel comfortable.
Mutter. Come on,
motherfucker. Yes. Come on, motherfucker. You mutter with your numb and also simultaneously hurting leg.
We need flashbangs.
Yeah. You step to the edge of the light. You wait, and then you can see it. And with the fog the way it is, with the thicker part of the bank being off to your left and the kind of thinning out, you can literally see this thing. It moves like overlapping snakes and fingers spilling onto itself and reforming as it goes. Give me a sanity roll for this particular view of this critter.
29 out of 34.
43 out of 47.
You're gonna take 2 for failing. It's indescribable, this thing. The lurker in the fog. What do? You wait till it gets closer
Yes.
and shine your light at?
Yes.
Or do you use the distance that you have and go ahead and sprint it out?
Where is it at in relation to the direction we're going to go? Behind us?
It's technically kind of off to the side, so if your goal is here, it's sort of off. So like the 7 o'clock position.
How close?
At this point, 15 yards in closing.
Make a run for it and try and fend it off.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. We'll make a run for it, and since we can see it, we'll kind of keep an eye on it
Okay.
as best as we can while running and try to fend it off.
Give me your dexterity rolls. Let's see how that works out.
21 out of 65.
19 out of 18.
Okay. So you don't set any speed records, but you certainly don't stumble or fall. You kind of shine your light off to the side and make it to the next lamppost as this thing kind of skirts the edge, and you notice that the rest of the street lights, without the fog sort of diffusing your light, kind of join together to create an overall ambient light, and this thing is keen to stay out of that. So it's skirting, it lets out this kind of defeated like, and you see it literally sort of just dissipate, and you watch from a distance as it just sort of sinks down into a sewer grating, disappears.
Damn it.
Our way out of this area.
Yeah.
You make your way out of the area, you kind of helping Walt limp along. The numbness only lasts for about an hour as you kind of move back. Sadly, there aren't many cabs out this hour. You're kind of wandering around the streets of London. You know generally where you need to go.
Discard the jacket into some into a sewer or someplace or trash if that's possible.
Your suit jacket?
Whatever jacket was the outer jacket, because it's covered in
That
homeless guy.
Yes. So you throw your coat away, so as a result of that, you're quite cold. But yeah, you make your way after an hour and change of walking.
Avoid fog banks.
Yes, back to your hotel, where you return. And we're gonna stop right here.
We'll check out his legs, see if there's any first aid to be done.
Yeah. Another monster tried to eat me.